Hi guys, welcome back to The Learning Gardener. If you haven't been here before, my name is Pip and today we are going to be doing chicken investigations. If you saw my recent video about what I want to do with the back part of my backyard, you know that I'm thinking about getting a couple of chooks. So today is going to be super hot, and yesterday, I don't know if you guys can see, I got stung by a bee and I'm allergic to bees and I'm on a lot of antihistamines and trying really hard not to touch it because it's really itchy. But I basically I don't want to be out in the heat today with this. I don't want to be working in the garden too much. So we're just out here to do a couple of things and have a quick chat, and then we're going into town to investigate the possibility of chickens. Now, the first thing we're going to do, which I'll explain when we get down the back, is take some hydrangea cuttings. So these are an Isabella hydrangea, so they're a white hydrangea. What I've done is take a cutting that's multiple inches long, and I'm just going to cut off the leaves. I'm not going to strip them off because there's little nodes underneath the branch essentially of each leaf that I want. Part of the reason why I want to take off the leaves is because I want the plant to focus on creating roots and not actually on maintaining the leaves that are already in existence. We've got a couple more hydrangeas down the back which we'll take cuttings from as well, and there's a few watermelons down there that need to be harvested, so we'll do that when we're down there. You want to have just a nice top on your hydrangeas, but otherwise a nice long stem. And I'm going to try and propagate these two different ways. I've grown them before by just putting them in water and leaving them, and they take about 3 or 4 weeks to develop roots. So I'm going to do some of that, and then the other one I'm going to use honey as a rooting hormone, so raw honey, and I'm going to coat the bottom part of the cutting in that raw honey and then put that in soil to see if it'll develop some roots. So hopefully you guys can see, if I hold these up close, that where I've cut off the leaf just above there's a little beginning of a node, so hopefully that will actually be where we get some roots forming. And you can see I've cut the bottom on an angle, so before these get upset by being outside in the hot, I'm going to go and pop these in some water inside. It's not for sure that we're going to get chickens because I've got 2 dogs that have quite a strong prey drive, especially Birdie, and who knows about Dobbs. We don't know if you would chase the chickens, do we, darling? But I'm just for now assuming that I'm going to get chickens, and at least that way, if I treat it that way, then I can kind of start acquiring knowledge and decide whether it's actually going to work in this area. I have checked council regulations and we can have them as long as we don't have roosters. So what I've been doing is trying to prep. So we've got the hydrangea cuttings inside and we're going to get a couple more, and the reason for that is that this is the back slope part of the garden, and we back onto a little riverbed, and so if we get heavy rains, this area can get quite moist, and it would be ideal to plant something like a citrus tree down the back here that loves moisture and that would absorb some chicken smell. But I don't remember this area getting a lot of sun in winter, so I'm going to watch it as we go into winter to see how it goes. But the other thing I'm doing is with the cauliflower and other brassica seedlings that we have that have got covered in aphids, or significant cabbage moth damage. Good spotting, you found a caterpillar, good boy. I am actually potting down here, and I'm doing that because I don't obviously want the aphids to infest the rest of the garden bed, but also if I get chickens, they're going to love bug infested brassicas. So I've just jammed all the seedlings into a couple of pots. They've been mauled by cabbage moth caterpillars overnight, so I've just killed a whole bunch, and Dobby just found one more. But if these die, no biggie. If they develop, great. We've got chicken food covered in bugs ready for the girls to come on in. This is the very back of the yard where I'm thinking about keeping the chooks. We had initially leveled a 3x3 area down here for a potential shed, but then decided that because it was under the tree that actually, to be fair, needs to have a few branches removed by the arborist, which I would do before I got chickens. And because this is where the water literally tracks just down here and out into the riverbed when we get really heavy rain, that it wasn't the best spot for a shed. Now that also makes it not the best spot for the chickens, but it's also the only spot for the chickens. So as I said, having citrus trees around here to suck up all the moisture would be great, but I can't remember this area getting much sun in winter, and citrus tends to produce its fruit as we go into the cooler seasons. So I will watch, and if I think I can get away with some citrus down here, I'll absolutely be putting some citrus plants in here. But what I thought I would do with the hydrangea cuttings is put them around the area to suck up some of the moisture, because hydrangeas really like moisture. Now apparently hydrangeas are toxic to chickens, so I won't be putting them in the run, just around the outside to try and get the moisture away. And then the plan is to have a very thick layer of wood chips to keep the area from getting stinky and soggy and gross, because apparently chickens used to be jungle creatures, so they really need like a deep mulch to actually scratch around in, and apparently that also controls their poop. I don't know, this is the learning phases for me, so we'll see. Now one of you guys had the world's best idea. You said to use this, which is one of my dad's crates from his work, but he's retired now, so he brought them down here so I could use them for wood crates. Most of my firewood is in them. I can't remember how this one ended up empty and got chucked down here and then forgotten about, but one of you guys suggested that I use this to put my perch on. I'm totally going to do that. So I'm going to flip it and have it, and then get the bolt cutters out and make some holes in it so they can go underneath it, so I can also get the poop out from underneath it. And then I'm going to somehow, to be determined how, build the hutch on top. So when we go into town, we need to look at things like hutch building material, how they make ladders, all the chicken things, but I've got heaps of ideas for things that I want to do to keep the girls really happy down here. In terms of how I'm going to use this area, it's a little more complicated and undecided still. You can see that the chickens would have a very keen observer up here. So whatever I enclose them in, it needs to be manageable because I don't have handyman skills, but it also needs to be dog proof and sturdy, so that if for some reason Bird decides to get some ideas, then the chickens are safe. And it also needs to be difficult enough that she can't climb from that wood pile on top of the chook pen and then jump over the fence to get the big male kangaroo that she likes to yell at when it's out the back here. So what I'm thinking is that I'll get Rio mesh and make archways. It's a kind of tricky area because there's a big iron bark and there'll be lots of roots, so it's hard to determine the shape without actually starting to build. But what I am thinking is that your average Rio mesh archway would be from the fence to about here, and then it's 2.5 to 3 meters high, right? So you can easily get in and move around. You could grow some vine crops up the top to keep the girls happy, and they can peck at whatever they reach. But I was thinking potentially of like S-shaping it through here, because Rio mesh is just too heavy to turn into a giant box. We can't do it, but we could make multiple archways that kind of snake around. Now, what the benefit in my brain of that is if the dogs are at the fence, kind of like, oh my god, look, there's chickens here, then the chickens can run through the S and run back here, and then there's multiple fences between them and the dogs, so they can kind of have a little bit of space. I'm going to move this ornamental pear tree a little bit, so we'll just move it more towards where you guys are, where the camera is, just so that it's not in the middle of the run, but it will provide the girls with some shade in summer. Then to manage the water issues a little bit more, so obviously I said thick mulch, I'm going to do that. Hydrangeas suck the water up, excellent, wonderful. I'm going to in winter make trenches all along the back and try and source some more free river rock that I can fill it up with to encourage the water to drain straight out. Now, I know there are a lot of you that are going to be skeptical that that will work. We had a stupid amount of rain this time last year, and I dug trenches and I filled them with river rock, and subsequently we've had a couple of massive downpours where we've had a couple of inches of rain in like 20 to 40 minutes, and I have watched as the water has run down through the trenches, and you couldn't see it, it wasn't like a swimming pool, and then right down the bottom where it gets stuck because of a root and because I need to finish the trench, it was like a swimming pool right there. So I know that that works. I know that trench works, so I know I can filter the water out and just send it down to the riverbed really quickly if I do that. So that's part of the plan. The other part of the plan for winter is that when I use firewood, I'm going to be using from the back here first, both to minimize Birdie's stalker potential, although she's going to be a stalker, that's just who she is, but also to be able to potentially make the run even bigger. Now, ultimately, I want to be able to work out how to use that little backtrack down there and how to make the girls safe when they're in there. But that part is for another day. I don't know how to do that yet. I'm not sure. To be determined. Work something out. But right now, we're going to go and grab some more hydrangea cuttings and that watermelon that needs to be harvested. And then we're heading into town to look at predator proofing, hutches, all things chicken. Now, excuse the mess, this area is on the winter list of jobs to do, and we've got one honeydew melon here that's obviously done really well this season. But while we're down here, the other thing I might try and do is do the exact same thing to my yellow twig dogwoods and my red twig dogwood, although it's not looking as flash, and see if we can grow some of them from cuttings as well, just because I had visions of this area having a dogwood hedge to hide the fire pit, especially if the oh, so itchy bee sting. If the shed area becomes a little bit trashed like it currently is, then we can kind of hide the eyesore. So we'll take some hydrangea cuttings, we'll take some dogwood cuttings, and we'll just see how they all turn out. But I'm a bit excited we've still got some more watermelons to harvest. Did not think that was going to work out, but if you give nature a chance, give it a try and just see how it turns out, it's all okay, isn't it, Dobbs? I could have picked a better time to do these hydrangea cuttings because it is going to be hot today and tomorrow. So ideally, normally I wouldn't usually prune hydrangeas and leave the younger, more tender leaves exposed to the heat. We're halfway through the first month of autumn, and these are going to go dormant in the not too distant future, and I want them to get a good root system going. It's going to take at least 3 weeks to do that. So by then we'll have like maybe 5 to 6 weeks of autumn left. It'll be getting really cold and they might already have gone dormant. So it has to be today that I get these done, otherwise it's not going to work. I don't want millions of dogwoods, but this is like the one time I've given the plants enough space to actually grow to meet their apparent potential, and it's been underwhelming. So we're just going to try and fill in the gaps and see if we can make free plants. So I do this a lot with coleus, with basil. I've done it before with hydrangeas. I do it with Mona lavender, and it works beautifully. Generally speaking, I prefer the laziest option possible with cuttings. So I just put them in water, and that's what I'm going to do with these dogwoods. Mostly because, generally speaking, I can't be bothered with things like rooting hormone and potting them up and making sure I remember to water them every day. That's like hard work. So I literally just dunk them in water and I leave them there for weeks, and I come back and sometimes there are roots, sometimes there aren't. But if there aren't, no big loss. If there are, win, free plant. Well, this melon caught my eye when I was just taking those cuttings, and it's ready. So the way I tell is where it's attached to the vine, opposite the stem, there'll be a little curly pig's tail vine, and if it started to go brown, it's on its way. If it's all the way brown, it's good to go. Have you ever seen a watermelon before, Dobby? We've actually got 3 to harvest. I just found them, and there's about 4 other ones that might soon be ready. So this is a pretty awesome second harvest of watermelons. This actually works out perfectly because I still have the giant watermelon in the fridge from a few weeks ago that I was going to process today and put in the freezer once we get back from town. And now I can do the same with these other ones. This is really more of a one-person sized watermelon. The other thing I'll do with some of these watermelons is drop one down at my friend's house. She lives 3 doors down and she has 3 hungry children, and they will be very happy to see a freshly picked watermelon. So we're going to go and pop these inside and pop them in water, and I'll pop a couple of the hydrangeas in the rooting hormone, aka raw honey, and pop them in some soil. And then we're going to head into town and learn about chickens. Chicken, 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 chicken.
Rainy days don't seem so wet. Stormy nights don't stay. From the moment that we met, you were worth the wait. Oh, this could be the best thing that I'll ever know.
So I went into town the other day to investigate the chickens and learnt a lot. I discovered that the place where you usually get the Isa brown chickens from, which is not necessarily the breed of chicken I particularly want, but it's the most readily available, and they're a good layer, which sounds so weird to say, but apparently the supplier of those chickens hasn't been able to supply the area for months and months and months, and normally they're in stock at all times. And I was like, oh my god, it's bird flu. But no, it's not. They had a hideous situation. They had a tree fall on the farm and kill 2,000 chickens, which is crazy. But they're getting chickens for the first time in months next week, and he was like, we're getting 100 chickens. They'll go out of stock really quickly, so we're not even taking names. You just have to be here on the day they arrive, and we don't even know what day they arrive. And I was like, oh my god. And there's no way I am ready for chickens in a week. There's no way. Even if I put all my energy into it, there's just no way. I just feel like it's such a steep learning curve. When I was there, I was looking at food types, and you know, they were talking about the fact that organic food is twice as expensive, but like almost no one buys organic food. And then I was thinking, but the chicken's eating it, and then I'm eating the egg, and then the whole point is that the whole point of having chickens is that they're eating homegrown, homemade food, and that it's better for them. Therefore, the egg has less rubbish in it. Therefore, maybe my body will be less reactive to the chicken's eggs. But evidently that's not how chickens are fed. So I feel like the learning curve is still way too steep to even consider having chickens, not to mention the fact that all of our brassica seedlings have been absolutely mauled. So I have these two not very deep pots lying around, so I thought what we would do is still continue to prep for chickens, because worst case scenario it just all ends up in the compost bin. But I thought these particular pots always ended up with a ton of worms in the bottom of them because they don't have holes in it. So the bottom of the pot stays quite damp. So what I thought I would do is plant a whole bunch of chicken-friendly crops, and then the girls could eat the crops and then dig around in here for the worms, and that would be one way to increase their protein intake with home food. But I mean, I learned a lot about chickens. I did not know that they could eat mincemeat. Like, whew. So what I've done is fill the 2 containers with some potting mix, and then I've made 4 little track lines and put some seed raising mix on there, and that's just to try and help the seeds get going. Ultimately, they don't have to be the healthiest seeds because, number one, they're already down near aphid town, but also because the idea is just that it provides the chickens with a little bit of food, but mostly just some stimulation. So the first thing I'm putting in is a row of silver beet. So apparently chickens can eat silver beet and like silver beet, so in it goes. Then I'm going to put in some sugarloaf cabbage. Now, I don't expect that if we actually get chickens that these plants will be able to ever get to their full size, especially not when I'm planting them quite thickly and in a container. I literally just want them for the chickens to be amused and to have something to peck at. And the other benefit is that sometimes you have like some dodgy potting mix lying around or things like that, but this is going to potentially, if this works, be a way that I can use that potting mix and get the chickens in there. They can poop in there, they can make the soil a little bit better quality, and then we can pop it in the compost bin and it eventually ends up in the garden beds. In an ideal world, I would use compost here to do this, but I don't have enough compost to put a thin layer on all my beds, let alone to donate to my chickens. So I also put in some coriander seeds, and now I'm putting green curled endive, which I've never grown before, but all of these things Google tells me the chickens can enjoy. And again, we're not looking for, you know, correct spacing, beautiful germination, all of that sort of stuff. We're just looking at, can we create some food and some amusement for our future chickens? Because as we go into autumn, these plants are going to slow way down in their growth. So even if we don't get the chickens for, you know, a couple of months, then these plants are going to be still fairly immature by the time the chickens turn up, and that's okay. So I'm just going to cover them with a layer of seedling mix, and hopefully that kind of finer soil factor from the seedling mix will actually help the germination rate on these plants. And then we'll just keep them down here because this is where they're going anyway. This area also doesn't get as much sun, especially this time of year where the sun has already moved, and apologies for the background noise. So they will grow slower as well, and they'll be more prone to getting aphids and stuff like that. But they can be almost like a trap crop and try and get the cabbage moth down here and laying their little caterpillars here so the chickens can have a field day. In terms of how many chickens, etc., I'm thinking 3. That way there's enough eggs on a daily basis that you can do most of the things you'd want to do if I'm going to eat eggs. It also produces enough that I can share. It means that I'm not providing them with a ton of food if I'm having to buy food, because I don't want my costs to increase dramatically. I know that if I do a Rio mesh setup that it is going to increase a little bit just in the setup, but the positive side of the Rio mesh is that I can pick it up and move it. I can take it with me if I move. It's highly transportable. If I decide I don't like having chickens, I can use it in the garden as an arbor. So it's got a lot of uses, and I'm hoping that it's going to work for what I'm looking for. They were telling me that the chickens will eat about 100 grams of pelletized stuff a day, so a 20 kilo bag is going to last us quite a while. And then I've joined some poultry groups on Facebook to start educating myself, and some of the things chickens poop out, I'm not sure if I'm really ready for, and dealing with lice and all of that sort of stuff. But I have bought 3 wormwood plants, so hopefully that will help with lice and things like that. And yeah, so I'm doing the research. We're trying to do some prep work so that it's not a mad panic if we suddenly get chickens or anything like that, because I am going to go to, there's a chicken show of some variety where people buy chickens, and they have fancy weird looking chickens there, and that's at the beginning of August. So April my brain. So I just want to make sure that if I do impulse buy a chicken, that I'm semi-ready for it. The other thing that I've got to consider is this back area where we're looking at keeping the chickens. Potentially, I need to go back through my old videos to see if it does get any sunlight at all in winter. It definitely does in every other month. Oh, I need some sleep. Every other season, but what I've started doing is bringing some wood up to the deck, and I mean, obviously I haven't removed this pile here, but potentially that's a great pile to leave to some degree in the hen run for them to pick at, because it's quite old wood and there'll be heaps of bugs and stuff in there. But I'm thinking that maybe we'll need to have an extension of the run that comes out just to where we kind of are now, so they can get a little bit of that UV exposure in winter. But we'll just sort of watch as the light changes, and I'll go back through my videos and have a look and see. But as I've said, I've started dumping the grass clippings down there, so I'm going to be mowing the lawn more, although the wheel fell off the lawnmower, so that does make that harder. But what I want to kind of do is then cardboard this area as well, and newspaper it and that sort of thing, especially once I've put aviary mesh down, and just layer that on top. One, to try and protect their feet so they're not scratching straight into the wire, because I don't really have a great deal of interest in digging out a couple of inches of soil and then planting on top of. But then also, I was thinking that if I can have little areas in the hen run where I can close it off, then I can do things like putting the lawn clippings and newspaper and stuff in, and make like a mini compost heap there, that then you leave it for a little while, let it break down, let the worms go in, and then release the hens, and actually just let them in there and scratch around and eat all those worms. And just another way I'm thinking of to try and find a way to let them eat kind of more naturally, because, you know, obviously I don't trust what's in even organic chicken pellets, because I don't know enough about it, and I can't free range the girls here. Number one, the property's not big enough. Number two, they'll destroy the vegetable garden, and number three, Birdie will probably eat them. So yeah, free ranging is not an option, but we're on our way. We're learning lots, and that's all that matters, isn't it, Dobbs? So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I really appreciate you guys coming along with us on the learning process as we hopefully prepare to get chickens. And hopefully we're heading in the right direction. Let me know if you have any ideas or comments below. I learnt a lot from you guys' comments last time, and the learning curve is steep. So at the moment it's all just ideas. So we'll just see how they pan out. Anyway, thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one.